The champagne flute in my hand cost more than most people's car payments. And I was about to watch my wife laugh at the joke that would destroy our marriage. "Ladies and gentlemen," Daman Ward raised his crystal glass higher, his perfectly veneered smile gleaming under the penthouse chandelier. "I'd like you all to meet Harper's current husband, Will. He's what I like to call a step one husband. You know, the practice round before the real upgrade package arrives." The laughter that followed wasn't polite social chuckling. And there was my wife, Harper, my beautiful, ambitious, supposedly loving wife of 8 years, giggling right along with them. "Oh, Damien, you're terrible," she said, but her eyes were sparkling with amusement, not embarrassment. She didn't even glance my way. "I'm Will Carter, 39 years old, and until that moment I thought I was living a pretty decent life. I run a successful IT consulting firm that I built from nothing, own a house worth $2 million, and drive a BMW that's only 3 years old. I thought my wife respected me. I thought her friends tolerated me. I thought I belonged in this world of luxury lifestyle startups and charity galas. Turns out I was the entertainment." "Will's adorable," said Jill Morrison, Harper's best friend and the biggest gossip in our social circle. "He's like a golden retriever. Loyal, dependable, and completely clueless about what's really going on." More laughter. Harper's hand found Damon's arm, her fingers lingering on his expensive suit jacket. The gesture lasted maybe 3 seconds, but I caught it. The way she looked at him, the way she leaned into his space. I'd seen that look before 8 years ago when she used to look at me like that. "The thing about step one husbands," Damien continued, clearly enjoying his audience, "is that they serve their purpose. They provide stability while a woman figures out what she really wants. But eventually, every smart woman trades up." I stood there holding my overpriced champagne, watching my marriage get dissected like a failed business venture, and something cold settled in my chest. Not heartbreak, that would come later. This was something sharper, more calculating. "Will's been so good to me," Harper said, "and for a split second I thought she might defend me. He gave me the foundation I needed to become who I am today. I'll always be grateful for that." Grateful, past tense, like I was already gone. The party swirled around us. Harper's colleagues from Lux Living, the lifestyle startup where she was VP of brand development, along with their spouses and significant others. Everyone was beautiful, successful, and completely convinced of their own importance. I'd been coming to these events for 2 years, ever since Harper got promoted, and I'd always felt like an outsider. Tonight I understood why. I wasn't a guest. I was a charity case. "Excuse me," I said quietly, setting my champagne on a nearby table. Nobody heard me. They were too busy laughing at Damien's next joke about starter marriages and practice husbands. I walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and pulled out my phone. 3 missed texts from Harper, all sent before the party. "Remember to talk about your little computer business tonight. People find it charming. Don't mention the house renovation costs. Makes you sound obsessed with money. Try to be more social. You always look so serious at these things." My little computer business, the company that paid for her BMW, her designer clothes, and half the mortgage on our house. The business she used to brag about when we first started dating, back when I was building something impressive instead of just maintaining something stable. I scrolled through her recent messages looking for something I couldn't quite name. Then I found it. A text thread with someone listed as DW in her contacts. "Can't wait for tonight. Will's going to be there, right? Of course, don't worry. He won't suspect anything. Good. After tonight, we can move forward with the plan. I'm ready. I've been ready for months." The timestamp was from this afternoon, 2 hours before we left for the party. I sat on the edge of the marble bathroom counter, staring at my phone screen, and felt something shift inside me. The hurt was there, sharp and immediate, but underneath it was something else, something that felt almost like relief. For the first time in months, everything made perfect sense. The late nights at the office, the new clothes, the way she'd started criticizing everything about me, my haircut, my conversation skills, my limited social circle, the way she'd been pushing me to network more and expand my horizons. She hadn't been trying to help me grow. She'd been preparing me for disposal. A knock on the bathroom door interrupted my thoughts. "Will, you okay in there?" It was Gary Hendricks, the only person at this party who actually gave a damn about me. We'd known each other since college, and he'd somehow managed to stay friends with both Harper and me through the divorce proceedings of 3 other couples in our group. I opened the door. Gary took one look at my face and stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "You heard all that, didn't you?" he said. "Every word." Gary ran a hand through his graying hair. He was a bartender at an upscale place downtown, which meant he'd seen every variation of human stupidity and cruelty that alcohol could reveal. "I'm sorry, man. I wanted to say something, but..." "But what?" "It's not your marriage. It's not just tonight, Will. They've been talking about you like this for weeks, Harper and her crew. I hear things at the bar." I leaned against the bathroom wall, processing this. What kind of things? The kind of things that would make you want to hire a lawyer? We stood there in silence for a moment, listening to the muffled sounds of the party continuing without us. Laughter, clinking glasses, the soft jazz music that rich people always played at their gatherings. "Gary," I said finally, "hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to make sure they weren't caught off guard by a divorce, what would you suggest?" He looked at me for a long moment. "Hypothetically, I'd suggest they document everything. Bank accounts, property, communications, and I'd suggest they do it fast." "How fast?" "Starting tomorrow fast." I nodded slowly. "Thanks for the advice, Will." Gary's voice was careful. "Whatever you're thinking about doing, just remember the best revenge is living well." I smiled at him, and I could tell from his expression that it wasn't a particularly pleasant smile. "Gary," I said, "I'm about to live very, very well." The next morning, Harper was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Early meeting with Damien about the Morrison account. Don't wait up tonight. We'll probably work late. Love you." "Love you." 2 words that used to mean everything and now felt like a signature on a business letter. I made coffee and sat at our kitchen table looking out at the backyard we'd landscaped together 3 years ago. Harper had insisted on the expensive Japanese maple trees and the imported stone fountain. "It's an investment in our future," she'd said. "Someday we'll have kids playing out there." Funny how someday kept getting pushed further and further away. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Carter, this is Tara Kelman, Mr. Ward's assistant. I think we should talk. Can you meet me at Starbucks on 5th Street at 10 a.m.? I have information you need to see." I stared at the message for a full minute. Damen Ward's assistant wanted to meet with me less than 12 hours after her boss had publicly humiliated me. This was either a trap or a gift, and I wasn't sure which would be worse. I texted back, "I'll be there." Tara Kelman turned out to be a sharp-faced woman in her early 30s with intelligent eyes and the kind of professional wardrobe that screamed, "I'm smarter than my boss, but he'll never figure that out." She was already sitting at a corner table when I arrived, a manila folder placed carefully beside her coffee cup. "Mr. Carter," she said as I sat down, "thank you for coming. Call me Will, and thank you for whatever this is." She slid the folder across the table. "This is me returning a favor you don't know you did me." I opened the folder and felt my stomach drop. Inside were printed emails, text message screenshots, and what looked like a detailed timeline of meetings and events. The first email was from Harper to Damien, dated 6 months ago. Will's been asking questions about my late nights. We need to be more careful until the transition is complete. I can't afford to have him suspicious before we're ready to move forward. The response from Damien agreed. How much longer do you think you'll need? A few more months. I want to make sure I get everything I'm entitled to in the divorce. His business is worth more than he admits, and I've been documenting his assets. My lawyer says patience will pay off. I looked up at Tara. Why are you showing me this? Because Damien Ward destroyed my life 2 years ago, and I've been waiting for the right moment to return the favor. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. He had an affair with my sister. She was married, had 2 kids. When her husband found out, Damien threw her under the bus to protect his reputation. Told everyone she was unstable, obsessed, making things up. She lost her kids in the custody battle because of the lies he spread. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, be smart. She tapped the folder. Your wife and my boss have been planning this for months. They're not just having an affair. They're orchestrating a complete financial takedown. Harper's been copying your business files, documenting your assets, and building a case that you've been hiding money from her. I flipped through more pages, bank statements I'd never seen, showing transfers from my business account to a personal account Harper had opened without telling me. Photos of our house, our cars, even my office, all with detailed notes about estimated values. She's been busy, I said. She's been thorough. Look at page 12. Page 12 was a printed email from Harper to someone named M. Rodriguez, presumably her lawyer. Will's business generated $2.3 million in revenue last year, but he's been telling me it was only 1.8. I have documentation showing he's been moving money into accounts I don't have access to. When we file, I want to claim he's been financially abusive and hiding assets. That should be enough to get me the house, half his business, and substantial alimony. The problem, I said slowly, is that I haven't been hiding money. That account she's talking about is my business emergency fund. It's completely legitimate. I know, but by the time you prove that in court, you'll have spent $50,000 in legal fees and she'll have already moved in with Damien. I closed the folder and leaned back in my chair. What do you want from me, Tara? I want you to destroy them both, and I want to help you do it. Why should I trust you? She pulled out her phone and showed me a text message thread. The contact name was Ashley Kay, presumably her sister. Tara, I saw the news about Damien's company stock dropping. Please tell me you had something to do with that. Tara's response, not yet, but soon. I've been planning this for 2 years, Tara said. I have access to all of Damien's communications, his calendar, his financial information. I know about every dirty deal, every lie, every shortcut he's taken to build his reputation. But I needed the right catalyst to bring him down without destroying myself in the process. And I'm that catalyst. You're a successful businessman with a clean reputation and a legitimate grievance. When you fight back, people will see it as justified. When I fight back, I'm just a disgruntled employee. I thought about this for a moment. What exactly are you proposing? Total destruction. We take away everything they care about. Money, reputation, social status, professional credibility. We make them famous for all the wrong reasons. How? Tara smiled. And for the first time since I'd met her, she looked genuinely happy. Carefully, legally, and very, very publicly. She pulled another folder from her bag, this one much thicker than the first. Damien's been embezzling from his own company. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger an audit, but enough to fund his lifestyle upgrades. He's also been using company resources for personal expenses, including his dates with your wife. That's not exactly a capital crime. No, but it's a violation of his fiduciary duty to the board of directors. And if the board knew about it, they'd have grounds to remove him as CEO. I opened the second folder. Financial records, expense reports, credit card statements, all showing a pattern of personal expenses charged to the company account. The board meets next Friday, Tara continued. If someone were to present this information to them along with evidence of Damien's affair with a married woman, which could be seen as a liability for the company's reputation, they might decide he's not the right person to lead Lux living into the future. And Harper's been using her position at the company to facilitate Damien's embezzlement. She approved expenses she knew were fraudulent. She also used company resources to investigate your business, which is a violation of her employment contract and possibly industrial espionage. I stared at the documents spread across our table. You've been planning this for a long time. 2 years, 3 months, and 16 days, and you're sure this will work? I'm sure it will destroy them both professionally. What you do with that opportunity is up to you. I gathered the papers and slid them back into the folders. I need to think about this. Don't think too long. Harper's planning to file for divorce next month. Once she does that, you'll be on the defensive. Right now, you have the element of surprise. I stood up to leave, then turned back. Tara, what happens to you when all this comes out? I've already given my notice. My last day is next Friday, the same day as the board meeting. By the time they figure out where the information came from, I'll be working for a competitor. You've got it all figured out. I've had 2 years to figure it out. I walked to my car with both folders tucked under my arm, feeling like I was carrying dynamite, which, in a way, I was. My phone buzzed with a text from Harper. Working late again tonight, don't wait up. We're so close to closing the Morrison deal. I texted back, good luck with that. I'll be working late too. For the first time in months, that wasn't a lie. I spent the next 3 days doing something I should have done years ago. I got organized. First, I called my accountant and had him prepare a complete analysis of my business finances. Every account, every transaction, every asset. I wanted documentation that would make Harper's claims of hidden money look like the desperate lies they were. Second, I called my lawyer, not the family attorney Harper and I had used for our wills, but a shark named Patricia Vance, who specialized in high-conflict divorces and business litigation. Patricia was expensive, ruthless, and had a reputation for making opposing counsel cry in court. Mr. Carter, she said after reviewing Tara's documents, your wife has made a serious tactical error. How so? She's been planning this divorce like a business transaction, which means she's left a paper trail. Every email, every copied file, every documented asset search, it all shows premeditation. In court, that works against her claim that you've been financially abusive. What about her accusations that I've been hiding money? We can disprove those easily. Your business records are clean, your accounts are legitimate, and you've been paying taxes on everything. Her lawyer is going to look like an idiot when we present the real numbers. Third, I hired a private investigator, not to spy on Harper. I already knew what she was doing, but to document it. Photos, video, witness statements. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd make sure I had cleaner hands. By Thursday evening, I had enough ammunition to end both Harper's marriage and her career. The question was how to use it for maximum impact. The answer came to me while I was sitting in my home office looking at our wedding photo on the shelf behind my computer. Harper in her white dress, me in my rented tuxedo, both of us grinning like we'd won the lottery. We looked so young, so hopeful, so completely unprepared for what was coming. I picked up the photo and studied Harper's face. Even then, 8 years ago, there had been something calculating in her smile, like she was already planning her next move. My phone rang. Gary, Will, we need to talk. Can you meet me at Murphy's? Murphy's was the dive bar where Gary had worked before moving upscale. It was the kind of place where nobody cared about your job title or your net worth, And the beer was cheap enough that you could drink your problems away without going bankrupt. I found Gary in the back booth already halfway through a beer. He looked worried. "I've got bad news," he said as I sat down. "Harper's been talking to people about you." "What kind of talking?" "The kind that makes you sound like a controlling, emotionally abusive husband who's been hiding money and threatening her." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "She's getting ahead of the story. It's worse than that. She's been specifically targeting your business contacts. Jim Morrison, the guy whose account she's supposedly working on. She had lunch with him yesterday, told him you've been struggling with anger issues and that she's concerned about your mental health." Jim Morrison was one of my biggest clients. His company accounted for nearly 20% of my annual revenue. "What did he say?" "He called me asking if you were okay. Wanted to know if I'd noticed any changes in your behavior lately." I ordered a beer and tried to process this. Harper wasn't just planning to divorce me, she was systematically destroying my reputation and my business. By the time she filed the papers, I'd be isolated, discredited, and financially vulnerable. There's more. Gary said she's been talking to Mike and Jennifer Chen. The Chens were our closest couple friends. We'd been having dinner with them monthly for 3 years. What did she tell them? That you've been paranoid and suspicious lately? That you've been accusing her of things she didn't do? That she's scared of how you might react when she asks for a separation? Jesus! Jennifer called my girlfriend asking if she should be worried about you. Said Harper seemed really shaken up when she talked to her. I took a long drink of my beer and stared at the table. Harper had been busy. While I'd been gathering evidence and preparing legal strategies, she'd been poisoning every relationship I had. "Gary, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Shoot, do you think I'm a good person?" He looked at me for a long moment. "Will, you're one of the most decent guys I know. You're loyal, you're generous, you work hard, and you've never said a bad word about Harper even when she's been treating you like garbage for months. But you're also naive as hell. You keep expecting people to play by the same rules you do, and that's not how the world works." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe it's time you stopped being so decent." I finished my beer and thought about this. Harper had spent months planning my destruction, and I'd been completely oblivious. She'd turned my friends against me, undermined my business relationships, and built a legal case designed to leave me broke and isolated. All while sleeping in my bed and telling me she loved me. "Gary," I said finally, "what would you do if you were me?" "I'd make sure everyone knew the truth before she had a chance to tell any more lies." "How?" He grinned, and it wasn't a nice expression. "Remember that charity gala next Saturday? The one where all your business contacts and social circle are going to be the children's hospital benefit? Harper's been planning it for months." "Exactly. She's expecting to be the star of the show, successful VP, devoted wife, pillar of the community. What if she got a different kind of attention?" I looked at him. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that sometimes the best defense is a good offense. And I'm suggesting that you've got enough evidence to turn her big night into a career-ending disaster. That would destroy her." "Will," Gary said gently, "she's already destroying you. The only question is whether you're going to let her finish the job." I sat there in the dim light of Murphy's bar, listening to the sounds of normal people living normal lives, and made a decision that would change everything. "Gary," I said, "I'm going to need your help." "What kind of help?" "The kind that makes sure Harper's charity gala becomes very, very memorable." He raised his beer in a toast. "Now you're talking." The Children's Hospital benefit was held at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, the kind of place where a glass of wine costs $30 and everyone pretends that's reasonable. Harper had been working on this event for 6 months, coordinating with caterers, decorators, and entertainment. It was supposed to be her moment to shine, the successful executive who could balance career ambition with charitable giving. Instead, it was going to be her public execution. I arrived early wearing my best suit and carrying a leather portfolio that contained copies of every document Tara had given me. I'd spent the morning at Patricia Vance's office making sure everything was legally bulletproof. What I was about to do would end Harper's career and destroy her reputation, but it wouldn't break any laws. "You're sure about this?" Patricia had asked. "Once you do this, there's no going back. She'll fight dirty." "She's already fighting dirty," I'd replied. "I'm just changing the rules of engagement." The hotel ballroom was decorated in Harper's favorite colors, cream and gold, with enough flowers to stock a funeral home. About 200 people were expected, including most of my business contacts, all of Harper's colleagues from Lux Living, and the social circle that had been whispering about my supposed mental health issues. I found Gary setting up behind the bar. He'd volunteered to work the event as a favor to Harper, which gave us perfect cover for what we were planning. "Everything ready?" he asked quietly. "Ready as I'll ever be. You remember the timing? 8:30 during the silent auction presentation. Harper will be on stage, everyone will be paying attention, and the microphone will be open." Gary nodded. "I'll make sure you get to the podium." I spent the next hour mingling, playing the role of the supportive husband. People kept asking me how Harper was doing, if I was excited about her promotion, whether we were planning any vacations. I smiled and made small talk, all while watching the clock. Harper arrived at 7:15 looking stunning in a black dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. She was glowing with excitement, working the room like a politician, accepting congratulations on the event's organization. She barely acknowledged me. "Will." Daman Ward appeared beside me, drink in hand. That same predatory smile I remembered from the penthouse party. "Great event. Harper's really outdone herself. She certainly has. You must be so proud of her. She's going places, that one." "Yes," I said. "She definitely is." At 8:25, Harper took the stage to begin the silent auction presentation. She looked confident, professional, completely in control. The perfect image of success. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said into the microphone, "thank you all for being here tonight. Your generosity will make a real difference in the lives of children who need our help." Applause, smiles, the warm glow of people feeling good about themselves. "Before we begin the auction," Harper continued, "I'd like to thank some special people who made this night possible." This was my cue. I stood up from my table and began walking toward the stage. A few people noticed, but most were focused on Harper's speech. "First, I want to thank my incredible team at Lux Living who donated their time and expertise to make this event spectacular." I reached the steps leading to the stage. Gary, right on schedule, appeared beside me with a wireless microphone. "And of course," Harper said, "I want to thank my husband, Will, who's been so supportive of my—" She stopped mid-sentence as she saw me climbing the steps. For just a moment, confusion flickered across her face. "Will, what are you?" I took the microphone from Gary and walked to the center of the stage. 200 faces turned toward me, curious and expectant. "Thank you, Harper," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the ballroom sound system. "And thank you all for being here tonight. I have something important to share with you." Harper's face had gone pale. "Will, this isn't the time." "Actually, it's the perfect time." I opened my portfolio and pulled out the first document. "You see, I recently discovered some very interesting information about my wife and her boss, Damian Ward." The room had gone completely quiet. I could see Damian near the bar, his face frozen in shock. "It turns out they've been having an affair for the past 6 months," I continued conversationally. "But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is how they've been using company resources to fund their relationship. I held up an expense report. For example, this romantic dinner at Leonard charged to the company as a client development meeting. Except there was no client, just my wife and her lover enjoying a $300 bottle of wine on the shareholders' dime. Gasps from the audience. Harper was staring at me in horror, but I wasn't done. Or this weekend getaway to the Hamptons, listed as a strategic planning retreat. Very strategic indeed. I could see people pulling out their phones, recording everything. This would be on social media within minutes, but wait, there's more. I pulled out another document. It seems my wife has also been using her position at Lux Living to investigate my personal business. Industrial espionage, you might call it. All in preparation for a divorce designed to destroy my reputation and steal my assets. We'll stop. Harper's voice was desperate now. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. I turned to face the audience again. I understand that while I was working 60-hour weeks to support our lifestyle, my wife was planning my destruction. I understand that while she was telling me she loved me, she was telling her friends I was a step one husband who needed to be upgraded. The silence in the room was deafening. I could see Jim Morrison at table 12, his face grim. The Chens were staring at Harper with disgust. Even the wait staff had stopped moving. So here's what's going to happen. I said, tomorrow morning, the board of directors of Lux Living will receive copies of all this documentation. They'll learn about the embezzlement, the fraud, and the complete lack of professional ethics displayed by their CEO and VP of brand development. Damien had started moving toward the stage, but Gary intercepted him along with 2 hotel security guards who'd appeared from nowhere. Harper, I said, turning back to my wife, you wanted an upgrade. Congratulations. You're about to get one. From employed to unemployed, from married to divorced, and from respected to notorious. I handed the microphone back to Gary and walked off the stage, leaving Harper standing alone under the spotlights, tears streaming down her face. The crowd erupted. Some people were applauding, others were shouting questions, and everyone was talking at once. I walked calmly through the chaos, heading for the exit. Behind me, I could hear Harper trying to salvage the situation, her voice breaking as she attempted to explain. But it was too late. The damage was done. The story was out. And by morning, everyone in our social and professional circles would know the truth. As I reached the ballroom doors, Gary caught up with me. How do you feel? He asked. I thought about it for a moment. Free. What happens now? I smiled, and for the first time in months it was genuine. Now comes the fun part. The fallout from the charity gala was swift and brutal. By Monday morning, Harper and Damien were both suspended pending a board investigation. By Wednesday, they were fired. By Friday, the story had made the local business news under the headline, Lux Living Executives Terminated for Fraud and Embezzlement. I watched it all unfold from the comfort of my home office, fielding calls from reporters, clients, and friends who wanted to express their support. Jim Morrison called personally to apologize for doubting me and to confirm that his contract with my company would continue. The Chen sent flowers with a note saying they were sorry they'd believed Harper's lies. It felt like vindication, but I wasn't finished yet. Harper had moved out of our house and was staying with Jill Morrison, at least until Jill's husband found out what had really happened at the gala. Damien had retreated to his penthouse, presumably trying to figure out how to rebuild a career that was now radioactive. They thought their punishment was over. They were wrong. On Saturday morning, I got a call from Tara. Have you seen the news? She asked. Which news? Channel 7, they're running a follow-up story about corporate fraud in lifestyle companies. Apparently, someone leaked additional documents showing a pattern of financial misconduct at Lux Living. I turned on the television and found the story. The reporter was standing outside Lux Living's headquarters explaining how the company's stock had dropped 30% since the scandal broke. Then came the part that made me smile. Sources close to the investigation tell us that former CEO Damian Ward may face criminal charges for embezzlement and securities fraud. The FBI has reportedly opened a preliminary investigation into his financial dealings. "Tara," I said, "please tell me you didn't—" "I didn't do anything illegal," she said quickly. "I just made sure the right documents reached the right people. Everything I provided was already part of the company's official records. And Harper, she's been named as a co-conspirator. Apparently, her role in facilitating the fraud was more extensive than anyone realized." I felt a moment of something that might have been guilt, but it passed quickly. Harper had chosen her path when she decided to destroy my life. I was just making sure she faced the consequences. That afternoon, I was working in my garden when a car pulled into my driveway. Harper got out looking haggarded and desperate. She was wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, the first time I'd seen her in casual clothes in months. "Will," she called out as she approached. "We need to talk." "I don't think we do. Please, 5 minutes." I set down my gardening tools and faced her. "What do you want, Harper?" "I want to explain what you saw, what you think happened. It's not the whole story." "Really? Which part did I get wrong? The affair, the embezzlement, or the plan to destroy my life in divorce court?" She flinched. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? I was going to tell you about Damien. I was going to ask for a divorce, but I wanted to make sure I was financially secure first by stealing my money and destroying my reputation by protecting myself." Her voice rose. "You don't understand what it's like to be dependent on someone else's success. I needed to know I could survive on my own. So you decided to commit fraud. I decided to take what I was entitled to." I stared at her, amazed by her ability to rationalize her actions. "Harper, you weren't entitled to anything you didn't earn, and you certainly weren't entitled to destroy me in the process. I never wanted to hurt you. You just wanted to rob me blind and leave me with nothing." She started crying, then the kind of desperate tears that come when someone realizes they've lost everything. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her, almost. "Will, I'm sorry. I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work things out. No, please, I love you. You love what I can provide for you. There's a difference. That's not true. Harper, 3 weeks ago, you were laughing at jokes about me being a step one husband. You were planning to take half my business and claim I was emotionally abusive. You were sleeping with another man and using company resources to spy on me. That's not love. That's predatory behavior." She wiped her eyes and tried a different approach. "What about forgiveness? What about second chances? What about consequences? What about accountability? I'm losing everything, Will. My job, my reputation, my friends. You lost those things when you chose to betray everyone who trusted you. So that's it. You're just going to destroy me and walk away?" I looked at her standing in my driveway, desperate and defeated, and felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. "Harper," I said quietly, "I didn't destroy you. You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone knew about it." She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked back to her car. As she drove away, I realized it was probably the last time I'd ever see her. My phone buzzed with a text from Gary. "Drinks tonight, I'm buying." I texted back, "Absolutely, we're celebrating. What are we celebrating?" I looked around my property, my house, my garden, my life that was finally completely my own again. "Freedom," I typed. "We're celebrating freedom. We're..." 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office, a sleek space downtown that was 3 times the size of my old home office when Patricia Vance called with the final update. "It's over," she said. "Harper signed the divorce papers this morning. No alimony, no claim on your business, no ongoing financial obligations." She gets her personal belongings and her car. You get everything else. What about the criminal charges? Damien plead guilty to embezzlement and securities fraud. He's looking at 2 to 5 years in federal prison. Harper cooperated with prosecutors and got a plea deal. 2 years probation and restitution payments. How much restitution? $800,000. She'll be paying it off for the rest of her life. I leaned back in my chair and watched the city bustling below my windows. My business had grown by 40% since the scandal broke. Apparently, my reputation for integrity had become a selling point with clients who we were tired of dealing with dishonest vendors. Patricia, I said, thank you for everything. Thank you for providing me with the easiest case of my career. When the other side's strategy is based entirely on lies, the truth becomes a very powerful weapon. After she hung up, I sat in the quiet of my office and thought about the past year. 12 months ago, I'd been a naive husband who trusted his wife completely. I'd believed in fairness, honesty, and the basic decency of people I loved. Now I was a successful businessman who understood that trust had to be earned, that love without respect was worthless, and that sometimes the only way to protect yourself was to fight back harder than your enemies expected. My phone buzzed with a text from Tara. Saw the news about the divorce being finalized. Congratulations. I texted back, thank you for everything. How's the new job? Perfect. My boss actually appreciates competence. Who would have thought? What about your sister? She got custody of her kids back last month. Turns out when Damien's credibility was destroyed, her ex-husband's case fell apart. She's doing great. I smiled and set down my phone. Tara had gotten her revenge. Harper had gotten her consequences, and Damien had gotten exactly what he deserved. Justice wasn't always pretty, but it was always satisfying. That evening, I met Gary at Murphy's bar for our traditional celebration drink. The place hadn't changed. Still dim, still cheap, still honest in a way that expensive establishments could never manage. So, Gary said, raising his beer, what's next for the newly single Will Carter? I'm thinking about expanding the business, maybe opening a second office. That's it. No plans for revenge against anyone else? I laughed. I think I'm done with revenge. It's exhausting, but effective. Very effective. We drank in comfortable silence for a while, watching the other patrons live their uncomplicated lives. Then Gary asked the question I'd been expecting. Any regrets? I thought about it seriously. About Harper number, about Damien, definitely not about the way I handled it. I paused. I wish I'd figured out what was happening sooner. I could have saved myself a lot of pain and them a lot of consequences. That's their problem, not mine. Gary nodded approvingly. You know what I like about this whole thing? What? You didn't just get even, you got ahead. Your business is booming. Your reputation is solid. And you're free of people who were dragging you down. That's not revenge, that's an upgrade. I raised my beer in a toast. 2 upgrades. 2 upgrades, Gary agreed. As we drank, I reflected on the irony of it all. Harper had wanted to trade up from a step 1 husband to something better. Instead, she'd ended up with nothing while I'd upgraded my entire life. My phone buzzed with one final text of the day. Unknown number. Will, this is Harper. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I lost. You were a good husband, and I threw it away for nothing. I hope someday you can forgive me. I stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it without responding. Some bridges once burned should stay that way. Outside Murphy's, the city lights sparkled in the darkness, full of possibility and promise. I had a successful business, loyal friends, and a future that belonged entirely to me. I'd learned hard lessons about trust, love, and the price of naive decency. But most importantly, I'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting everything you deserve while your enemies get exactly what they earned. I finished my beer, said goodbye to Gary, and walked out into the night, free from the past and ready for whatever came next. Funny thing about upgrades, they don't come with a warranty, but when you do them right, they last forever.